Today, I want to tell you someone else's tale. Though not mine, it has very much shaped my life to this very day. But before I tell you the story, I present you with this project. My daughter's school bag has 3 Velcro patches. They are made of some type of plastic, and before the school year has ended, one of them has cracked and ripped apart. So I am on a mission to repair and replace it, hopefully with something a little sturdier and long-lasting. Though the patches are delicate and became quickly brittle, the rest of the school bag is of good quality. It was expensive, and I hope it will last her several school years with good care. Now we move on to the actual design. I use an app called Stitchly, and I'm pretty pleased with it. I've only experienced one glitch in the year that I've been using it, and I was surprisingly met with amazing, thorough, quick, and attentive support. This is by no means an ad, but just my genuine opinion on this program and its maker and caretaker. Before I begin, I had to take a moment to weep into my hands, having been suddenly overcome with grief over the injustices so many innocents are suffering as I sit here with my children, privileged, full-bellied and warm. I will not fool you into thinking my emotions are a smooth sailing, and grief can be a mercurial sea to pass through. But I am not here to make you board the ship with me. Instead, I want to tell you of a story from the experiences of one of my favorite and most savvy of sailors in this life, my mom. I'd like to first paint you an accurate character depiction of my mother in the years between the 1970s and the 1990s, for this is of utmost importance for the understanding of the moral in this tale. My mother was loud, very loud, like a parade, like a neighbor's party, like walking back into a concert from the muffled quiet of the bathrooms. Her opinions always arrived 5 minutes earlier than her mouth. Her laughter always erupted suddenly, like when a pan drops off the drying rack on the kitchen counter. It breaks the glass of the silence and echoes longer than expected. She was also always colorful, normally with a pop of red somewhere, either from a lipstick, a belt, a scrunchie, or her shoes. She carried with her an atmosphere of Yves Saint Laurent's perfume, Paris, which also had a red top and a red box. And when she went to work, she would give me a red kiss on the top of my hand, which I would keep with me unwashed until she came back home later in the day. She took up space despite her short stature. She danced when music played, and she sang when she didn't know the lyrics. And she never found a problem she couldn't solve. She was the town saint, clothing the cold, hugging and eating with the servants of the houses of her rich husbands, and forcing the town mayor to shoo the barefooted children at my country school. But she was also the town witch, causing scandal by regularly baking bread for the LGBTQ community that had been ousted from their homes to die of AIDS, with her daughter, me, in tow. Bringing blankets and cachaça to the homeless in winter, and attending gay nightclubs with my father in support of my gay brother, her stepson. My mother was, and still is, a force of nature, unstoppable, unwavering, volcanic. She could flood a room with joy or ire, depending on the circumstances. She could be 7 feet tall if anyone ever tried to put her down or force her into her expected role of a 5'3" woman in Catholic Brazil. And that is where our story begins. At the threshold of her sister-in-law's house, her very Catholic sister-in-law, who made pamonhas unparalleled to any other. For those unfamiliar, pamonha is tamales' juicy Brazilian sister, a sweet corn paste boiled in the husk and served in different flavors, some salty, some sweet. And in those times, there was much etiquette to be followed, not just in being a hospitable host, but also in being a gracious guest. The host would always offer food twice. The first time, the guest should politely decline, and the second time, they should agree to take it. This was a very strict dance the two roles had to abide by. A rejection of the food could mean the guest doesn't trust the host, or believe their food or cooking to be too lowly and humble to partake in. Whereas a too eager acceptance upon the first offer could mean the guest was gluttonous and greedy, visiting only to partake in the host's generosity and eat their food while miserly saving their own at home. If the host didn't serve you a portion and said, "Eat as much as you like," to show their generosity, then you are treading thin ice. Eat too much, and you're a selfish glutton. Eat too little, and you're an uppity snob. But if the host didn't offer any food, this could make them appear as either poor, selfish, or unwelcoming. Enemies could be made if the social dance was not meticulously done. And thusly, my mother would do her best to follow the social steps at her sister-in-law's house. But still, she would later hear through others the snide remarks made about her by her sister-in-law and her kin. It had nothing to do with the food, though. Anytime my mother would visit her brother's house, especially for gatherings or parties, it was like a male peacock had entered the hen house. His wife, her sister, and their mother, in their long dresses and skirts, their conservative fashions and demeanor, would pale in the shine of my mother's presence. Her audacious wardrobe consisted of short jean skirts, tube tops without bra, masculine pants, handmade items she sewed herself, and bell-bottoms that rose so daringly low that it sat, and I quote, right on the forehead of the perseguida. Perseguida meaning the pursued one, a Portuguese synonym for what we call the female parts unmentionable below the belt. She smoked cigarettes and drank beer with the men, cackling at her own jokes and captivating the attention of all around her as the most interesting person at any event. She was no housewife by the traditional definition of the word, and worked as an award-winning director and producer at Brazil's most popular TV channel. Despite all her charisma and complimenting of her cooking, the sister-in-law and her kin did not warm to her charms, and though fake smiles and passive aggression were always served alongside with the food, sharp words were always said at her departure. So one day my mother visited, and when her sister-in-law offered her pamonhas, she treacherously invited my mother to have as many as she liked. To which my mother responded, "You know what? I think I will. Because if I eat too many, I'm a glutton who has nothing to eat, and only came here to partake in your good graces. And if I don't eat enough, I'm an uppity snob who's too fresh to eat from your humble pantry. So I'm gonna eat pamonhas to my heart's content because you're a damn good cook." And she did. And judgment was passed after she left, as it always was. But this time, my mom left full-bellied and content. When she would tell me the story, through ruptures of laughter, she would say, "Let this go to show you When someone wants to say something nasty about you, it doesn't matter if you eat too much or too little, it will never be the right amount. So you might as well eat all you want and leave happy. This was eye-opening for me. Those who have something bad to say will find flaw no matter how perfect you try to be. So do what you want. Judgment will be passed regardless, so you might as well enjoy yourself. I interrupt this broadcast to announce that I did not like one bit the lavender that I chose originally for the bow of the bunny. So I will commence frogging and change it to a darker pink so as to better stand out. The blue and the lavender made it blend too much with the background and not stand out enough as I would like it to. Anyways, something similar happened with the mother-in-law of my mother's first husband. Because of how she dressed, the mother-in-law called her a puta. So when my mom's husband would visit his mother for lunch, the mother-in-law would not allow her in the house, and my mom would politely sit in the car so as not to cause further conflict. After this having happened a couple of times, my mom stood her ground and gently said, "Either you let me in, or your son will stay outside under the sun with me." Seeing that her son was not objecting to this request, the mother-in-law grunted that my mother could come in then. After going inside, my mom asked her, "I am your only son's wife. Why do you treat me this way?" To which the old woman said, "Because you are a puta." Calmly my mother asked her, "And what does it mean to be a puta to you, signora?" The old lady replied, "To smoke cigarettes, to drink beer, to wear short skirts, and to converse and make friendships with men so openly." My mom nodded quietly and said, "Then you are right. I am a puta, because I do all of those things." To this, her husband finally spoke up and said, "Why can't you just wear a skirt that goes below the knee when you visit my mother's house?" To which my mom replied, "Because then I would just be a puta dressed up as Mother Mary. Your mother's opinion is made up." It wasn't until after lunch that my mother saw the old woman's bedroom was covered in the most beautiful embroidery, with hoops and supplies abound. She asked her if she had embroidered all these things, and her mother-in-law said yes. To which my own mother mentioned that she too loved to embroider, having learned it with the nuns in the Catholic school she spent time in when her own mother could not afford to keep her. Surprised that my mom enjoyed needlecrafts and had spent time with nuns, she invited her to embroider together. And not much longer later, my mother became a daughter to the old woman. They would laugh together in ways that her own son had never seen her do before. My mother had brought light and laughter into her life, where hardness and rudeness once lived. And with this, she taught me to just always be myself, and to not clothe myself or act differently than I am, simply because someone said it was not acceptable. That is just their opinion, and their opinion doesn't change the truth of who you actually are. And it is with this that I end today's story. I hope you enjoyed our time together and the sneak peek of how I design and execute my patterns. I hope you laugh often and loud. I hope you always eat as many pamonhas as you like and dress however you feel comfortable dressing. Until next time, my friends. Ha det!